So before we start with our lesson, let's have some introduction about the PMP certification itself. So Project Management Professional, this is certification from Project Management Institute. And this certification, this is the most globally industry recognized certification for project managers. This certification demonstrates that you have the knowledge and the experience and the skills competencies required to manage and lead projects. In order to be certified, you need to actually go in 3 main steps. Number 1, you have to meet the minimum requirements from PMI to be eligible for the exam. Number 2, you have to book for the exam and pass. Number 3, you have to maintain the certification by earning and obtaining 60 PDUs, professional development units, over a cycle of 3 years. So let's have a look first on the PMI website. So the first step is to visit the PMI website, which is pmi.org. Second step, you need to register, which is just create a username and password. Once you register and you have your username and password, then you need to go for certification and look for the PMP, Project Management Professional. Once you click on that, you will have the home page for the Project Management Professional PMP. From that page, you need to click on Apply Now for your PMP. So once you are done with this exam, then you are going to be certified, and then you need to maintain the certification. So let's see first the minimum requirements in order to be eligible for the exam. As for PMI, the minimum requirements, first you need to have some educational background, which is the depends on your education background. Based on this educational background, you need to have some project management experience. So for secondary school or high school diploma, you need minimum of 5 years experience in project management, or 60 months, which are equal to 7,500 working hours in project management. This doesn't mean that you need to be participating in this project, or as a work experience a project manager. No. Any task you handled belongs to any project. This will be counted. But remember this tip. This 60 months or 7,500 hours, the work experience required, or if you have a bachelor degree, then actually the required 3 years, or equal to 36 months, equal to 4,500 hours of experience. Now this working experience, you need to think about 3 years if you are bachelor degree, or 5 years if you are secondary degree. These are non-overlapping experience. Meaning, if you manage a project or you've been part of a project team, let's say 2 projects. Project A start on January and finish on June. Project B start on January and finish on March at the same year, for the same year. These are not 9 months of experience. These are 6 months of experience, because you need to have non-overlapping experience in project management domain for 3 years if you are bachelor degree, or 5 years if you are secondary degree. So just keep that in mind, thinking about non-overlapping period of time. So this is about your project management experience. So you have to meet this before you are to become eligible for the PMP exam. Second domain that you need to meet is the education part, which is actually this course. So you need to have 35 content hours of formal education, which is this course will cover this for you. So once you meet this minimum requirements, then you need to start with your application for the PMP on the pmi.org website. So let's see the process from the moment that you start building your application all the way until you pass, certified, and then maintaining this certification. So this process looks like this. Number one, this is your application submission, which is the step that we've covered on that website from the PMP, on the PMP Project Management Professional PMP site. Once you start with this application, as for timing, you have 90 days to complete this profile or your application. In that application, they are going to ask questions about your experience, of course, this project management experience, which is that you need to cover for 3 years if you are bachelor degree, or 5 years if you are secondary degree. Plus, you need to cover, or you need to mention about this course itself, which is your education requirements, the 35 contact hours. To complete these applications, you have a window of 90 days. That means within 90 days, you need to complete all this information. Because on the work experience, they are going to ask you questions about the projects that you've been you participate in, what the title of the project, what the objectives, what's your task that you covered in that project, dates, start, end for each project, some information about the company and your manager, supervisor, and this type of information. That's why it needs time. So if you are in a position to, if you have all this information and you prepared yourself about only a list of projects or some activities you handled in project management for the past 3 or 5 years, and you have an idea about the projects, objectives, all these names, you have it in one file, then I believe this process, or having this application ready, it's not that difficult process. So this one you have, as we said, 90 days to complete. Then you need to submit for the application. And once you click submit, you have 5 days, 5 working days. This is for the PMI to review your application. So you have 5 days, or you need to wait for 90 days. Now, 90 days if your application selected for random audit. And if PMI select your application for random audit, they might ask for as a proof about all the information that you have it in your application. Like proof about your bachelor degree, like a copy, proof about attending the 35 contact hours, which is a certificate, proof about the project. They might communicate with your company just to clarify about your participation in this project. So this is what we call it audit. Most of the time, audit meaning just prepare all the documents required in case your application picked for audit process from PMI. If that happened, you have to wait for another 5 days. So in total, it's 5 to 10 working days. And once your application approved by PMI, this is the moment that you'll receive an email from PMI saying that congratulations, your application has been approved, and now you are ready to proceed with the to pick the date and time and sit for the exam. And this is where you need to pay for the exam fees and pick a date and time, book for the exam. So once from the moment that you receive that email, you have a 1 year, which is multiple choice examination eligibility in 1 year, because you have 1 calendar year as an for you to pass the exam, and you have in total 3 times to try. So in case, which is not our target, definitely our target is to pass from the first try, of course, but in case you didn't make it at the first try, in total you have 3 options, 3 windows. You can pick 3 times to sit for the exam in 1 calendar year. Once you sit for the exam and you are certified now, which is your certification start, the cycle itself start from the day that you pass the exam. So you have a 3 years window to maintain the certification. And this is where you need to maintain now for the first 3 years, and every 3 years actually, from the day that you pass the exam, you need to maintain something called professional development units, your PDUs. So you need to obtain 60 PDUs in a cycle of 3 years in order to keep your certification in good standing. Okay, so this is about the maintenance for this certification. So the question, do I need to sit for the exam in order to renew my certification? No. Once you pass the exam, it's only one time. But remember, your certification, it has an expiration date. It will be expired, first suspended, then expired. That's why you need to do some maintenance. That's why what you need to obtain the 60 PDUs in order to keep your certification in good standing. So once you have the 60 PDUs, this is where you need to renew your certification simply by submit the renewal fees. And in case you didn't submit this renewal fees, or you didn't have the 60 PDUs, then your certification will be under suspension for 1 year. This is you have it at the 3rd anniversary of the day that you pass the exam, if you have not fulfilled the continuing certification requirements, which is obtaining these 60 PDUs. So your certification will be under suspension. If you continue, and if later, if you didn't meet the requirements and you didn't pay for this renewal fees, then your credential will be expired. So credential expiration, this is at the end of your suspension period, if you didn't fulfill the continuing certification requirements toward credential maintenance and renewal. So in that case, if you wish to hold credential again, you need to reapply. So let's have a look on about some fees before we proceed with our lesson. So the fees for setting the exam and for renewing your the PMP certification. This is a very important advice, since you are now in a process which is a very important step from your end to be certified as a PMP. My advice, go and pay for the membership from the PMI, because being a member, especially for this year and the year that you are trying to sit for the exam and just be certified, because being a member, you will get a very good discount on the exam fees, on the re-examination fees, and on the renewal fees. And the amount that you are going to get as a discounted amount, actually it's more than the membership amount itself. So actually it's a very good investment. So being a member, number one, you will get some extra discount on the exam fees. Number two, you will have access to some free digital resources, which are, yes, of course, required to pass this exam. First one is the PMBOK, which is the body of knowledge from PMI version 6, which is the main reference for the PMP exam. So let's have a look on this examination fees or credential fees. So number one, of course, if you are in a position to sit for the exam in a paper-based testing, these are the prices. But let's see about computer-based testing, which is any examination center or online. So being a member, the credential fees or the exam fees, it's $405 or 340 euros. If you are non-member, if you see the difference, it's $555. So almost 145 or $150 actually discount. Where being a member, the fees for membership, it's $129. So I believe this is a very good investment, right? So this is the exam fees. How about re-examination, which is not our target at all? So if you fail for the first try, as we said, you have 3 options, 3 times that you can sit for the exam in 1 year, right? Once you receive that email saying that you are eligible for the exam. So re-examination for a member, $275 or 230 euro. For non-member, 375 or 315 euro. Now for renewing, for the renewal for the PMP certification, for members, $60, sorry, in every 3 years. Or for non-member, this is $150 in euro. Sorry, this is only in US dollar. So these are some quick briefing about the fees, and all this information, by the way, you can download it from the pmi.org website. Once you create your username and password, you can, and once you hit for that Project Management Professional PMP page, you will have some very good references like the handbook that will give you overview about the exam itself, about what you are going to expect in the exam, about all these fees, about the process of submitting your applications, and so on. So to summarize this process for you, just remember, first you need to register for the pmi.org, have a username and password. Once you log in using your username and password, my advice, go and pay for the membership. Once you pay for the membership, start with your application. And once you start with your application, you have a window of 90 days to complete that application. The application that you need to prepare to cover your project management experience and your education. As for project management experience, this depends on your education. If you are secondary degree, you need to cover 5 years, 75 working hours in project management. If you are bachelor degree, you need to meet 3 years of experience or 4,500 working hours. Once you cover this and you cover the education, which is this course, 35 contact hours in project management, then you can submit your application. Once you click on submit, you need to wait 5 days or 10 days, depends if your application got selected for audit by PMI. And if your selection, if your profile, selected by PMI for audit, then you have to submit some proof, some documents, like about your certification, the education about the 35 hours, or they might communicate with your organization about the information you provided about the project that you've been part as one of the project team. So once you receive an email, remember that, from PMI saying that congratulations, you are eligible to sit for the exam, please pick date and time. From that moment, you have 1 year window to sit for the exam and pass. And you have 3 times as an option to try to pass the exam. Once you sit for the exam and you pass, then you have to keep maintaining this certification. In a cycle of 3 years, always you have to maintain and obtain 60 PDUs, Professional Development Units. And how you can obtain the 60 PDUs, this is what we are going to cover with a piece of media from PMI. Will give you some very good overview on that area, how you can maintain a 60 PDUs once you pass from the on the PMP exam. So let's have a look on this piece of media from PMI, and then we'll continue our discussion.
Welcome to the Project Management Institute's Spotlight Series. This presentation spotlights earning PDUs. Congratulations! You've passed your PMP exam and have joined the elite group of project management professionals. Now, what's next? You're certainly ready for the challenging work to come your way. Along with these additional career opportunities, you must continue to learn and grow in the project management field. You're in luck because PMI has some guidelines designed for this exact purpose in the form of the Continuing Certification Requirements, or the CCR program. The CCR Handbook details how to participate in activities to earn Professional Development Units, or PDUs. Your questions are starting to bubble up, right? What exactly is a PDU? How many are needed? How much time do I have to earn them? When does the clock start? What is the official process for reporting PDUs? Let's try to answer your questions. First of all, a PDU is the unit of measurement or value assigned to each learning or service activity as outlined in the CCR Handbook. You must earn at least 60 PDUs. From your first day as an official PMP, you have 3 years to earn the required PDUs, and the PDU earning cycle starts on the day you pass your PMP exam. The process is relatively straightforward. You participate in an activity, then complete the online form to report the PDUs. Keep proof of your participation in case you're audited by PMI. Finally, pay the renewal fee when the bill arrives. You don't need to worry about the details yet. They're documented and available in the CCR Handbook, so don't try to memorize them. Now that you know the basic requirements, what exactly is a PDU-worthy activity? Professional development activities are divided into 2 major areas: education and giving back to the profession. In education, there are 5 different types of learning activities that you can participate in. And giving back also has 5 types of activities. At a minimum, you need to earn at least 35 PDUs in the educational category, and you can earn a maximum of 25 PDUs in the giving back category. Let's start with the educational category. To emphasize the importance and relevance of the talent triangle, all educational PDUs are aligned to one of the 3 skill sets. You can determine which skill set applies to a given activity based on its content. For example, reading a book about motivating a team applies to leadership. Attending a class on earned value management applies to technical project management. And participating in a company workshop to develop the corporate mission statement applies to the strategic and business management skill set. You must earn a minimum of 8 PDUs for each skill set: 8 for technical project management, 8 for strategic and business management, and 8 for leadership. That brings the total to 24. You can earn the remaining 11 PDUs in any area of the talent triangle you like. Now that you know the required number of educational PDUs, let's look at some specific activities. You can attend an instructor-led class in person or online. Participate in a PMI chapter event or other professional meeting with an educational component. Use online or digital media to complete a self-paced course. Read books, articles, white papers, and even blogs. And finally, participate in informal educational opportunities with other professionals, such as lunchtime workshops. For all of these learning activities, 1 hour of activity is equal to 1 PDU, which is reported in increments of quarter hours. Can you think of some available learning activities near you? Now, let's talk about how to give back to the profession. Like educational activities, there are multiple ways to give back to your chosen field. One way is to find employment using your PMP knowledge and skills. However, for the employment activity, you can earn no more than 8 PDUs in the 3-year cycle. You can also apply your knowledge by authoring books, articles, or other types of training materials. Use your subject matter expertise to give a formal presentation at a PMI chapter event or conference. Act as a coach or mentor to someone working toward PMP certification. And finally, volunteer to serve on an official PMI committee or provide your project management expertise to a nonprofit organization. Except for the employment activity, 1 hour spent performing these activities is equal to 1 PDU, again reported in increments of quarter hours. So that's it. Your job is to select an activity and you'll be on your way. To make it official, fill out the form using CCRS Online. Hang on to your documentation as proof in case PMI audits you. You can consult the CCR Handbook for the exact documentation you'll need to provide. To help you achieve your goal, It's always good practice to plan when and how you'll fulfill your PDU requirements. And that's how you can maintain your PMP certification status. Thanks for using the PMI's Spotlight on Earning PDUs. For more information about the Project Management Institute's certifications, membership, and services, visit our website at www.pmi.org.
Hi, and welcome back, and hope that piece of media from PMI was helpful for you in order to understand how to maintain your PMP certification by obtaining 60 PDUs over a 3 years cycle. So now let's have a look on the PMP exam content outline. Because your exam for the PMP actually is based on the PMP exam content outline. This content outline, it has mainly 3 domains. Each domain has a list of tasks. Each task has a list of enablers. So let's have a look on these domains, tasks, and enablers. First of all, domains. What the meaning of domains? It's a high-level knowledge area that are essential to the practice of project management, which is some of the area that you must have some knowledge on this area in order to manage and lead project. This is a domain. It's on a high level. Under each domain, you have a list of tasks. And tasks mean responsibility of project manager within each domain area. So what are the responsibilities as project manager? List as tasks. For each task we are going to cover, you will see a list of enablers. And these enablers, these are examples of the work associated with the task. These are not a list that you have to follow. These are some examples of the work associated with each task. As for the exam content outline, we have 3 domains. Domain number 1, people, which is 42% of the questions on the exam will be from people domain. You have a process, and process you will have 50% of the question in the exam from the process domain, and last one, business environment. 8% of the questions in the exam from business requirements. In total, you will have 180 questions in the exam. Time, 4 hours. Type of questions, multiple choice questions. Pick 1 out of 4, and you have multi-choices. For example, pick out 2 out of 5, 3 out of 7. And you have another type of questions, which is match questions, drop questions. This type of questions. Also, you have some very nice material from that PMP, the Project Management Professional page on the PMI.org website. You have a nice piece of material on what you are going to expect, what type of questions you might have in the exam. So my advice, have a look on that material. That will be extremely helpful for you. So in total, as I said, you have 180 questions. These 180 questions, half will be following productive approach, traditional approach for managing project, and half will cover agile. We are going to cover these 2 topics once we start with our lesson number 2 in more details. So far, just remember that we have mainly 3 domains: people, process, business environment. From the people, you are going to have 42% of the questions. From the process, you are going to have 50%, and business environment, 8% of the questions. So these are some overview about the PMP exam content outline. And our structure, the content outline for this course, actually approved, authorized by PMI to prepare you for the exam. So we are going to cover as a structure mainly in 5 lessons, and today our lesson number 1, as we said, which is creating high-performing team. So now it's a time to see what are the objectives of this lesson and to have an idea about the tasks that you are going to touch in this lesson. For this lessons, we are going to talk about determine the project team member requirements, appraise team skills, maintain team knowledge transfer. And for this objective, we'll cover task 1.2 and task 1.6. So just to make clarification about the number that you are going to see throughout this course. For each lesson objectives, and even for each task, you'll see some enablers, you'll see these numbers. Always remember, these numbers for the ECU means exam content outline, which are the tasks to be covered under this objective. And these tasks are 1.2 means 1, which is first domain number 1, which is people, 2, which is the task number, which is task number 2 from the exam content outline. And of course, task 1.6 means domain number 1, which is people, task number 6. Objective number 2, collectively define the project ground rules based on context such as organizational rules, team dynamics, and so on. This will cover, we are going to cover task 1.12 from the people domain. Then determine a negotiation strategy, negotiate some project agreements. This is where we are going to talk about having this shared understanding about the project, which is extremely important for any project. This will cover task 1.8 from the exam content outline. Then we have organize around team strength and support team task accountability. This will cover task 1.4. And this objective, extremely important for any project. This is part of your role as project manager to think about the strengths of your team, how you can empower your team. This is one of the core values that you are going to touch on this lesson. Next objective, objective E, ensure team members and stakeholders are adequately trained. And this is one of the main focus for the project managers, which is to ensure that you are going to deliver the required training for your team to empower your team to deliver their work. This is the main idea. This will touch on task 1.5 from the first domain. Task number 5 belongs to people, of course. Objective F, continually evaluate the effectiveness of virtual team member engagement. We are going to touch on the virtual team, of course, definitely with our project now. Virtual team becomes a strategic tool for any project. All of us, you have to deal with a virtual team, and many times you need to deal with a virtual team. That's why we need to touch on the virtual team, and we'll see how you can improve the performance of these team members and how you can track the performance of these team members throughout the project. This will touch on task 1.11, last objective, which is reach consensus and support the outcome of the parties' agreement, which is task 1.10 from the exam content outline. So now we are ready to start with our first topic under this lesson, which is build a team. So it's a very good start for us, since you have now a very good briefing about the PMP certification itself, how to start with your applications, and you have a knowledge about the PMP exam content outline, and we touch on the objectives for this lesson. It's time to start with our first topic, topic A, build a team. So we'll see you with the next session. Hi and welcome back, and this is our first topic under lesson 1, which is build a team, topic A. So this is the first task we are going to touch under the lesson number 1, and this is our first target for any project manager. You need to start thinking about your team and stakeholders involved. So what do we have as enablers under this task? Number 1, support diversity and inclusion for your team. And this is, again, just to explain, these numbers belongs to the enablers. So this is enabler. So now we understand the structure of the exam content outline. At the high level, we have the domain. Under the domain, we have task. Under the task, we have list of enablers, which are actually list of example of the work associated with each task. So as for the first enabler, the support diversity and inclusion. So this is a ECO, exam content outline, and domain number 1, which is people, which is second task, which is this task, and 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome back to our first topic. 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome back, and we are ready now to start with the first topic under the creating a high-performing team lesson, which is topic A, build a team. So let's have a look on the enablers that we have under this topic or task. So number 1, support diversity and inclusion. And this is enabler will touch on the ECO 1.2.2. Just to remind you again about the numbering here. So since now we understand the structure of the exam content outline, we have the first level, this is our domain. Then we have second level, under each domain we have a list of tasks. Then under each task we have a list of enablers. So here for this number, 1 means the first domain, which is people. 2, which is task number 2 from this domain, and this is the second enabler. This is support diversity, one of the enablers that we are going to touch in 2 tasks actually. Task number 2 under domain and task number 6 under the people domain. So practically build a team, this is task number 6 under the exam content outline. So as you can see here, this is first domain, which is people, task number 6, then first enabler, second, third, fourth. And here we have also one of the enablers that belongs to business or the process domain. 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome back to our hi and welcome back. 1, 2, 3. Hi, welcome to this session to cover topic A from the lesson 1, creating a high-performing team, and this topic called build a team. In this topic, we are going to cover the following enablers. 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome back, and welcome to our first 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome back, and in this session we are going to cover the first topic, which is build a team under the lesson 1, creating a high-performing team. This topic, which is build a team, this will cover task number 6 under the first domain, which is task 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome to this session to cover first topic under the first lesson. 1, 2, 3. Hi and welcome back, and in this session we are going to start with the first topic, which is build a team, task number 6 under the people domain, and this is our first task or topic under the creating a high-performing team. So let's have a look on the enablers belongs to this task or topic. As for the list of enablers, just keep a note, as list of enablers, you might see some enablers. These are shared enablers between different tasks. This is one of the examples that in this task, you will see some enablers belongs to, or we need to, might touch on some other tasks. And also you'll see enablers belong to this task itself, which is build a team. So as a list, first, support diversity and inclusion. This enabler belongs to the exam content outline, domain number 1, second task, enabler number 2. But this is a shared enabler. We are going to touch on this area in this task, which is build a team, and on the second task under the people. Second one is the appraise the team skills. And this is where you can see now, this is belongs to first domain, which is people, and task number 6, which is this topic, build a team, and this is our first enabler. Then Determine team member requirements, which is, of course, domain number 1, people. Task number 6, which is build a team. Then we have the second enabler. Then continuously assess and refresh the team skills. This is the third enabler. Fourth enabler will do the build a team, maintain knowledge, team knowledge, and transfer. These are the area that belongs directly to this task or topic. And we have last discussed responsibility within the team. And this belongs to the second domain, actually, the process domain, under the task number 16, which is the first enabler. So as you can see, some of the enablers that we might touch here might be shared between some different tasks. Your target here not to remember these enablers. Your target here to understand exactly what each task, because this is your responsibility. What to do next, very important, and to understand the scope of each task. What are the responsibilities as project manager in this area? What type of knowledge that you need to have in order to start building a team? So just remember, list of enablers. These are examples of the work associated with each task. Your main target to understand the scope of each task and to understand the tools, techniques that you are going to cover, and also to understand what the main outputs, what you are looking to have as an output from each task under each domain. So let's start with our actual work. So as for the list of deliverables and tool, for each topic we are going again to cover, which is actually task. Practically each topic is a task in the exam content outline. You'll see a list of deliverables and some tools, which is high-level overview about some deliverables expected from this area, and some tools might be useful for you in order to achieve these outputs. So you'll see here a list of deliverables like skills list, technology involved. We are going to talk about some resource schedule, which is a very interesting area for any project. Rates, resource assignment. We'll see some tools, very nice and famous tool, which is RACI metrics. We'll touch on this, and some pre-assignment tools, and of course virtual teams. So let's have a look with start talking about building a team task. So project teams, as definition, the team is a set of individuals who support the project manager in performing the work of the project to achieve its objectives. So practically, this is your team. This is the people who are going to do the work, and you need to, from the day number 1, think about the team and then how you can achieve, how you can get that high-performing team. So the project resource management, which is one of the area that we normally start thinking very early. This area talking about the resources required for the project, which is including your team, of course. But resources means human and physical, by the way. But part of that area talking about how we are going to estimate, acquire, manage the teams of people. Thinking about our strategy in this area. Estimate the other resources those team members will need to carry out the work, like physical resources. Obtain the people. How we are going to acquire your people and to obtain your people? Is it through internally, like collecting these team members from the different functional areas or departments? Or are you going to go with the sellers to acquire this team externally from a third party? Develop the team. Improve their competencies. Facilitate interactions. Create effective teaming environment. This is all area that we normally start planning for very early in the project. Track team performance later. Create, execute improvements, providing feedback to your team, and resolving issues, and manage the team personal change. These are the area that it's extremely important to start thinking early in any project about the resources. And just remember, for all the tasks, all this flow of project management, always for each area we need to plan for that area. We'll touch that on more details once we start with the process. We'll give you more understanding. But since under this domain, this lessons will touch, of course, as we said, task belongs to people. We are going to focus about the area that you need to meet, deal with people throughout the project. One of this area, once you start your project, this is where your main focus now. And of course, dealing with people, this is throughout the project, but some area in your project, you might focus more on the process itself, the flow. That's why we have a second domain talking about process. So, planning for this project team, how you are going to acquire your resources, how you are going to maintain, to build this team, how you are going to deliver the right training and to deliver the right skills, competencies required, and how you are going to track their performance later. This is all we need to start thinking about very early in any project. Thinking about team member, project team member requirements. What are the requirements for your team? Some consideration for your team, some skill set required to perform the work. And this is one area that you need to think very early in a project. What are the skills required to deliver this scope of work required for this project? Avoid some single points of failure caused by a single resource having required skills. And that's why we have a very famous approach in thinking about your project team, that the skills of your project, your team must follow the T-shaped skills. And T-shaped means they have a deep knowledge in one area and high-level knowledge on the other area of the project. We are going to touch on more details about this, but this is the area of avoiding. This is the idea of avoiding having this single point of failure, because you need to ensure that all team members in your team, they are able to deliver the scope of work required for your project. So this is where use a generalizing specialist who have a core competency, which is a deep knowledge about one area, and general skills that can be leveraged to support other area of the project. For example, if you are in a project, let's say in IT industry, and you need to deliver a piece of software, it's a very good practice to avoid having this single point of failure, and you need to ensure that your team members, as a project team, everyone, they have to have this core knowledge about some area. So you will have some people, they are specialists in database structure, building this database, maintaining your database. Some other one is so specialist in web design. You have some other people, they are developers. So they have that deep knowledge in one area. But each team member, for that person who has focus on maintain and create this database, he has a basic knowledge about web design. He has a basic knowledge about how to do a piece of code. So this is the idea of having this generalizing specialist who have a core competency and some general skills. So this is something you need to take care about when you start thinking about your project team. Second area that you need to consider when you're thinking about your project team, like their physical resources. How about the physical resources required for this project? Do we have a list of these physical resources from day number one? By the way, some physical resources we know from day number one, which is something that you need to maintain, that you need to think. But always keep in mind this. From the moment you start your project, you have some knowledge about the requirements for the project. Human resources, physical resources, at this area, you have some information. But over time, more information you receive about the project, more understanding and more detail that you can go in this area. So always this is the nature of any project, which is progressively elaborated over time. More information we know, the more detailed plan we can go for this project. So some other consideration, as we said, your physical resources, equipments required, license for a software, materials, and so on, and access rights, some access rights to some users for some information, some data. So the project stakeholders, what are the project stakeholders? We mentioned that your success in any project depends on the people involved. The first area, which is the key stakeholders, one of the key stakeholders, of course, your project team, your sponsor, and some other stakeholders that you need to think about, which is any stakeholders you might have in the project and connected to your project. They have that ability to help you and to deliver a successful project, or might be a problem. So this is the area of the stakeholders. So what is the definition of stakeholders? These are an individual or a group or organization that may affect or be affected by or perceive itself to be affected by decision, activity, outcome of a project, programs, or portfolio. So practically, you are going to deal with a big list of stakeholders in your project, and this is the nature of the project. So definitely, this is you at the center. This, of course, you, one of the key stakeholders. So all the people involved in a project and can be affected by this project, we call it stakeholders. So yourself, your team, one of the key stakeholders. Your sponsor, one of the key stakeholders. So we are talking about the project manager. This is you. This is your project team. This is your the resource managers, which is some other functional managers that you need to deal with in order to acquire a team, for example, from different departments internally in your company. Your sponsor, steering committee, your project management office. This is one extra layer. And then we can think externally, of course, your stakeholders, which are external stakeholders. We are talking about customers, end users, suppliers, you name it. Media might be part of the stakeholders if you are dealing and delivering a big project, mega project, of course. So practically, stakeholders, it's in a huge list that you need to take care of, and especially for the list that we have it normally under the title of key stakeholders. So these are the stakeholders for any project that you need to take care of, that we need to identify very early. And our target with these stakeholders, we need to keep them engaged throughout the project. This is the key word. And always engagement for the stakeholders, thinking about stakeholders, start very early in any project. And this is a proactive process, meaning you need to keep looking all the time at new stakeholders you might have. We need to capture, and we need to have it, and we need to analyze. We'll go with that, all these details, of course, throughout this course, but I'll give you always some tips on how to understand this framework. So stakeholder identification, this is what I mentioned, that this is one of the areas that normally we start very early in the project. From the moment you have that, they announce the existence of the project, and they said, now we have a project and you are the project manager. Next day morning, you need to start on this area, identifying your stakeholder, which is extremely important. Thinking about your team and some key stakeholders you might know from day number one, and this is proactive process. Keep running. You have to go and check for any new stakeholders throughout the project. So stakeholder identification, this is identifying stakeholders, tends to happen at the project charter is being developed. From that moment, because on that charter, which is, we call it, by the way, the birth certificate of a project, normally on that document, which is, we are going to, of course, to touch on more details, you will have some information. And one of these information, some list of key stakeholders that you know from day number one. But of course, this list will keep growing. List of identified stakeholders should be reviewed, modified as changes occur throughout the project. So this is ongoing process. The plans that are developed should describe stakeholders and the planned engagement model. The keyword in stakeholders, always remember that, is the engagement. You need to keep thinking about how to engage your stakeholders throughout the project. And the secret for a proper engagement, always communication. So always I will repeat everything I want you to remember for as an output from this course. I will repeat it a lot during this sessions. One of the area that always stakeholders communications going side by side. Wherever you see stakeholders, always think about communication. At the project progress, always some other documents. Normally we are going to create and develop a lot of documents. So any documents, a list of documents that you are going to generate will help later in capturing, identifying any new stakeholders, like your change logs, your issue logs, requirements documentations. These are very good documents that will give us some information about any new stakeholders we might have in our project. Change log, always you have a requester for a change. Issue log, always you have someone who submit an issue. So you need to double check these documents, see if we have any new stakeholders, and then capture this information, have it in a document we call it stakeholder register. We'll come to that in more details later. So the stakeholder list may be affected by the organizational environment factors. And this term, organizational environment factors, we are going to touch on this later once we start with the business, but maybe I can give you some quick idea about this. From the name, this is environment around the project. Might affect our ability to deliver, because these factors, which belongs to the environment, they are not under my control, our control as a team. So as the organizational environment factors, we are talking about some factors belongs to the company. For example, the structure of the company, the management style of the company, how the political awareness, the political situation in the company, how we are going to follow the framework methodology that we normally follow in our company to deliver project. Do we have a project management office? If this is the case, we might be obliged to use some, for example, specific scheduling software. So these are factors as an environment around the project might affect our ability to deliver a project. So our options will be limited because of these factors. This is the idea here. The stakeholder list may be affected by these factors. Depends, of course, on the factors, on the environment. We'll touch on this area throughout this project, of course, but mainly once we start with the business, because business talking about more the environment about the project and how you need to link the output from your project back to the organization level. Referring to the stakeholders list from previous project might be useful, and this is one of the area also that we will see during this throughout this course. Many processes we are going to touch, they mentioned that it's a very good practice to refer back to some records from previous project. Practically referring to something called organizational process assets, or we call it OPAS. Again, similar to this environmental factors, these two areas are so famous in project management. And once you start in this area, which is start very early in this project, and you need to think about your resources, you need to plan, you need to start planning for the project. Most of the time you need to take care of this two areas, which is the environmental factors and the organization process assets, which is we call it OPAS. From the name, it's an asset for the company. It's organizational process assets. Since these are assets for the organization, that means these are our policies, procedures, processes, previous records from previous projects. These are assets for the company. Our experience that we captured normally in something called lessons learned,
might be also, it will be captured, it will be part of our assets as organization. And this is where most of the time you will see that they are going to advise to refer back to our previous projects and records from previous projects, because in case you deliver in the past similar to this project, it might be good practice to have a look on that project and see what are the stakeholders that we have it on that document. It might be very good advice to take care on this project. For example, some government office that you need to take care of, that you need to get some license, some approval. It might be part of audit. You need to submit some documents. You need to receive some approval on some steps in your project. These are stakeholders, definitely. So having this information from previous project might speed up this process, of course. Skills list, and these are list of skills that they are required for any project manager and practically all the team members or the project team, in order to communicate, in order to solve, in order to reach to decision, in order to how to have this common understanding. So these interpersonal skills, definitely, they are extremely important for any project. So let's have a look on some skills that's required for you and for your team members. So number one, of course, conflict management. And conflict management, conflict in general, they are inevitable in any project. In any project, you are going to have conflict. The main idea of conflict management, it's to how to control this situation, because practically conflict always comes with emotions, and this is the idea. So we need to know how to control the situation and how to come up with some positive outputs from a conflict situation. And of course, we are going to touch on this area more details in lesson number 4. We are going to see some techniques, some strategies on how to manage conflicts later. Another one is the cultural awareness. Of course, in project management, we are going to acquire team members as a project team. And most of the time, you will end up with some team members from a different age, different culture, different backgrounds, different experience, different education background, of course. And because of that, understanding this culture, the differences between this culture, will improve will avoid having this misunderstanding or miscommunication between the team members. So this practically, yes, definitely will improve our communication skills with these team members. Decision making, which is of course the skills on how to reach to an agreement. Facilitation, very important skills, because for you as project manager, you need to have the skills of how to lead a group to decide on something, how to facilitate such an activity, like focus group meetings, like brainstorming sessions, all these type of sessions. To have a very good output, I need to facilitate how to keep these people focused on the topic and how to lead these people to reach to a decision. This is facilitation. Leadership, definitely, as project manager, we are not looking to have a manager in our project. Practically, we are looking to have a leader for the team, and a big difference. So leadership, which is your ability to influence others to follow you. This is a very simple statement about leadership. Also, we are going to touch on leadership and what are the style of the leadership you might have in the project, throughout the project. A meeting management, definitely a lot of meetings you are going to have in your project. So how to handle a meeting, how to prepare the agenda for the meeting, how to send the invitation for how to invite people, how to invite the right people in that meeting, how to keep people following the agenda, and how to capture the minutes, send the minutes, follow up with action. This is all meeting management skills, of course, we need. Negotiation, of course, throughout the project, we need always to negotiate. From day one, we need to negotiate about the team members required for your team, of course, and physical resources. So negotiation about the resources, negotiation about time, budget, negotiation about some services might be required. So these are on negotiation, how to reach to an agreement with the second party. Networking, which is extremely important for you as project manager. This is on how to interact between people and how to share knowledge with people. Observation, this is on technique, involves watching some other people, some other users on their working environment in order to understand the situation and capture the exact business needs. So observation, very good technique when we are going to start collecting the requirements for our project. So this is one, of course, so useful and so important technique. Servant leadership, which is one type of leadership, which is we actually value a lot in agile environment. And servant leaders, these are the leaders that they are working for the team, and they are focused on how to facilitate, how to waive the impediments from the way of their team to let them work, to let them deliver. So you know this type of managers, when you call and they said how I can serve you, this is servant. So servant leadership style we value a lot in agile environment. And of course team building, which are any activity that or opportunity that we might have in our project in order to strong the team together, to have this strong relation as a team, how to improve the trust between the team members, how to improve the communication, collaboration between the team members. This is all opportunity we need to capture and we need to apply in our project as team building, of course, skills. Now, RACI chart. Now, the RACI chart, this is one of the famous documents, actually, that and very useful, that we normally we use to see who is going to work on what, who is going to be responsible on what, who is going to be accountable on which task. So, as definition, it's in a type of responsibility assignment matrix, or RAM. So we call it RACI metrics. So this one uses the responsible, accountable, consult, inform. So RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. Statuses to define the involvement of stakeholders in project activity. So let's have a look here on this example. So RACI's, I have only one tip about RACI. So RACI, how it works, these are the list of tasks, okay? And these are the list of, let's say, project team, key stakeholders. So now for each task, the one who is going to do the work we mark as R. R means responsible, which is the one who is going to do the work. If I want to follow up on this task and to see the status of this task, normally I need to follow up with the accountable person. So that's why for each task we have someone marked as A, which is accountable. And then in case this task might be linked to some other task and I need to consult with somebody, so that's why I need to mark that person as consultant. Or if you need to inform someone about the status of this task, whether it's complete, in progress, wherever, we have it as an I. But the quick note that I have on RACI chart, always for each task on this list, you need to have one and only one accountable on each task. But for these tasks, you might have one or more people are responsible to do the work. But as accountability, always for each task, you must have one and only one person accountable for each task. So again, on this area, we have a beautiful piece of media from PMI to give you more understanding about the RACI chart. So let's see this media first, and then we'll continue our discussion.
Welcome to the Project Management Institute's Spotlight series. Now let's turn our spotlight on RACI chart creation. You are designing a change in an existing service for your organization. When designing a service, running an improvement project, or coordinating a process, there exists the potential for overlooking important items or for particular contributors becoming overwhelmed. So, you need a way to make certain all roles and responsibilities are accounted for and covered when performing these tasks. Fortunately, you can use a powerful tool known as a RACI chart for this purpose. Suppose your continual service improvement project requires a team of 5 people. These 5 individuals have different skills, but also many of the same skills since they work in the same IT organization. There is a lot of work to do, and all the bases must be covered. So you'll need a way to both organize the required tasks and track their progress. One use of the RACI chart is to map out the activities related to the effort and list them in rows. Along the headers of each column, list the names or the roles being considered for or affected by these activities. Here, team member names are used, but you could use role names, job titles, or other classifications. For each listed activity, you and your team must determine a few things. First, identify who is responsible for performing the work. In this example, Alan and Barry are responsible for completing Activity A. So, you'll need to place an R in the boxes for Alan and Barry. Next, enter R's in the second row for Barry, Carrie, and David, as they are responsible for Activity B. A designation of responsible means the person is required to perform the tasks or actions involved in the activity. The accountable person, represented by the letter A, is the singular person on the hook to make certain the activity is completed or performed per expectations. Here, Alan is accountable for Activity A, even though he and Barry are both responsible for performing the associated tasks. Likewise, Ethan is solely accountable for Activity B. When the responsible people are working on an activity or activities, they may need to consult with others as the activity may impact tasks they're working on. For Activity A, Alan and Barry must consult with Carrie. So you'd place a C for consult under her name for Activity A. Consulting is the expected back and forth communication between Carrie and those responsible and accountable for Activity A. In other cases, a team member may only need to be informed of progress or issues for a particular activity to stay aligned with the overall effort. In this example, for Activity A, that person is Ethan, so you'd place an I under his name. Once you've completed the entries for your project, examine the entire RACI chart and ensure that it is mapped appropriately. Adjust the roles and responsibilities listed as needed or as you receive new information. And that's how to ensure you're tracking all critical activities while designing or managing processes and services. Thanks for using the PMI's Spotlight on RACI chart creation. For more information about the Project Management Institute's certifications, membership, and services, visit our website at www.pmi.org.
Hi and welcome back, and I hope that piece of media from PMI about RACI chart was helpful for you. So let's continue with our topics. So team skill appraisal, and these are this is what enable the team actually to identify its strengths and weaknesses and to assess the opportunity for improvement. And this is extremely important for us. And this is one of the main targets when you are going to think about your team, which is the area of the strength, area of the weaknesses, and how we can empower your team with the required skills and competencies required to deliver the work. And this will, of course, improve building the trust, establish some communication mechanism between the team. So some appraisals might identify the team preferences, for example, the aspirations for the team, information processing and organization, how we are going to decide, so decision-making processes, and some interaction with the other team members, some pre-assignment tools, always when you start with our project, we have some pre-assignments, some tools and techniques. And always in our project, we start with a project with some of team members, some of the resources that we already pre-assigned to the project. So, and later when you are going to start with acquiring your team, these are some of the techniques for pre-assignment tools. So attitudinal survey, one of the approach, you might go for that. Some specific assessments about some special skills, competencies that you are looking for. So you do some assessments for that, maybe by having that type of test that you have it part of your recruitment process, or structured interviews. Well, by the way, this is of course so famous. So structured interviews will help you to identify the required skills with the required skills and competency in your team. Ability test, their ability to deliver the work, some kind of task, and some focus group to acquire some teams, maybe with your functional managers at your company, to have this type of focus group with some key stakeholders, with some subject matter expert to draw the list of skills, competencies required in this project. And this will help you later on identifying the team members, of course, required for this project. One of the other areas that we need to take care of, which is diversity and inclusion. And as we mentioned, of course, the project team members normally, and the project teams are becoming from, since we are dealing now with more global environment and more in change-driven environment, therefore we have more diverse in our team. So our team members are from different culture, different backgrounds, different age, different experience. And our main target here, how to create an environment that takes advantage of the diversity and building trust between the team members. And team development objectives in this area might include as this is will improving some team knowledge, improving team knowledge and skills to reduce cost and time and improve quality. And this is extremely important. That's why we said always in your team, for your team, the investment by delivering the required knowledge and training, this is a very good investment for your project, because on the long run, definitely you are going to cut in cost and cutting time. So you are going to save in time, save in cost, improve the quality, because your team, they will have the required skills to deliver fast and of course to deliver the correct solution from the first time, if they do have that kind of knowledge. So this is definitely will improve the quality and reduce, and on the other hand, it will improve teamwork. Creating collaborative culture to improve individual and team performance and facilitate cross-training and mentoring. And of course, training and mentoring, this is we are going to touch in more details later, but this is where having this diversity and keeping all this in mind and plan for these areas from day number one, this is definitely important for any project. Empowering the team to participate in decision making and on the solutions they create. This is extremely important point, and this is one of the core culture in Agile. Having your team part of the decision making activity, decision about priority of items, how to prioritize items, decision about efforts required to deliver a piece of work, decision about between alternatives. So empowering your team, having your team part of this activity, this will empower your team more, and this will make them accountable on this work. That's why it's an extremely important. This is one of the characteristic of a servant leader, and this is one of the core value of Agile. We need always to empower our team to make them responsible and accountable on their work. So let's continue with our discussion. Of course, one of the plans that we discussed that we need to have it very early in our project, which is your resource management plan. And this plan will take care about the resources required, human and physical resources. And you need to think and plan for this area very early in any project. So what do we have in this plan? Identification of resources, human and physical, some acquisition of resources, how you are going to acquire these resources, either externally or internally, some roles and responsibilities required as a team, as a project team, list of roles like function of the person in the project, authority, which is very nice, very important to have, which is rights to use resources, rights to make decisions, accept deliverables, what are the rights for that, responsibility and the duties to be performed, and list of skills, competencies required to complete the desired activities. So these are the area talking about the roles, the responsibility, skills required for your project. And for any project, same as for the organization, it's very good practice to have this project organization chart, which is, as for the organization project chart, we have something for the project, which is showing the project manager, key team leaders, and then the team members as a structure. Remember, having the complete list and the team directory, we call it team directory, most of the time you are going to finalize this once you start doing the work. But from the day one, when you start your project, always you have some list of resources that you know. List of resources that you can identify very early, human and physical. But with the planning, you will have more understanding. Once you collect requirements, once you have the scope clear, you have a clear understanding about the resources. But remember that the list of the team required for the project, especially if you are running a project in productive environment like construction, think about construction. The majority of the team members you are going to acquire once you start doing the work, not through planning. Because the majority of the team members will be acquired on site once we start doing the work. Again, this depends on the methodology, type of project, type of the method itself, but keep that in mind. The list of the resources as a human resources, physical resources, it might not be complete until you are done with planning and start with the execution. So, but it's very good practice to have this project organization chart. If you don't have names, at least you have it as role, of course. Project team resource management. So this area talking about the human resources. So remember this plan, not only about the human resource, but also physical. But project team resource management, this is talking about the humans, of course, your team members. So this is guidance on the life cycle of the team resources, which is how they are going to be defined as planned, to answer how you are going to be staffed, the team members, manage the team members, and how they are going to be released from the project. Some training strategy and requirements. Maybe you can plan that from day number one, how you are going to capture the training needs, how you are going to capture the skills, competencies required for your project, and to see, do we have any gap between the required skills and the skills that we have in our team? This is throughout the project. And always we need to capture this, do this assessment. If you decide we have a gap, how you are going to deliver the required training, what the approach, and then later how you are going to see and to track the performance once we deliver this training. So all this we might touch on under this team development method, the training strategy, and requirements, and team development. How you are going to develop this team, what the methodology, resource controls, and whatever you see something like resources and controls, this is a quick tip for you. Definitely we are talking about physical resources. Because for human resources, which is your team, we are managing the team members. We are not controlling. So resource control, this is for physical resources. How you are going to acquire these physical resources, how you are going to ensure they are going to be on site on the specific time, for how long they are going to have it in this project, all this process, all this area, talking about only how your And recognition plan, which is how the team members are going to be rewarded and recognized. And this is very good and very nice tip for you to remember always to plan for the rewards and recognition. Don't leave it. Just plan for it, because just to ensure you are not going to forget about this area. Okay? So this is only plan on how you are going to achieve this throughout the project, which is your resource management plan. Of course, planning for this area starts very early, but remember, this is progressively elaborated throughout the project. Virtual teams, of course, in this change-driven environment, and depends on the nature of the project, size of the project, you might need to deal with the virtual teams. And virtual teams, these are groups of people with a shared goal, will fulfill their roles with little or no time spent on meeting face to face. And this is one of the main challenging areas in dealing with virtual team or having a virtual team. Because always remember, in communication, the best way to communicate is face to face. And the only challenge, the big challenge that we have with a virtual team, that we don't have this face to face. So of course, we need to know how to deal with a virtual team and how to develop a virtual team and how to be sure that these team members are going to feel that they are belongs to this team, and later how we are going to track the performance. So in this area, which is under the virtual team, create opportunities for finding team members with greater skills and lower costs. And this is why virtual team is something so good for a project. Because of course you will have now a big list. Your options are limited to acquire some team members, regardless of the locations, regardless, they are part of your team now. They might have some good skills, great skills with a lower cost. Now, create challenges. This is the idea of, this is the area that we need to take care of. Managing the communication and enabling some effective team performance. This is where virtual team always, we have some challenges in this area because of the communication, simply because we don't have face-to-face, and enabling effective team performance. So virtual team building consideration. Some consideration to build a virtual team. Number one, bonding and team identity may be hard to develop. This is one of the areas. So bonding and team identity